doing, all of the research that we've been doing about opportunities to open up land for community uses. And so thank you for this opportunity to give you all an update. We're going to start off the presentation just with a quick overview, a quick review of what a community land trust is, just to refresh our memory and make sure we're all on the same page. So we can go to the next slide.
Please, can I ask you a question? I don't know if was there information or packet for council to follow with, or we following?
Oh, actually,
It's just a
yeah, here we printed these out. We have your copies.
Okay.
Instead of you. Okay, yeah, and then these also, you're getting a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and also just as additional reading, there's a report that was published by OCORD, the Orange County Communities Organized for Responsible Development, put out a report a few months ago about this opportunity of a community land trust in Santana. What are some of the research that's been done that demonstrates the need, and what are some of the policy opportunities that exist. So if you all want to look into that, in the next few days. So just as a review again of what a community land trust is, it's an agency that's created to hold land with this idea of land stewardship for public benefit. And the way it works is that any publicly owned vacant land is transferred to the community land trust entity, which is then restored and put back to use for the community. One important distinction that we want to make sure that is clear is that private developers are invited to develop, to build on this land and benefit from it. So whether that's an individual or a developer, a business, or an organization, a nonprofit, whomever is welcome to develop on this land, at a profit, or to benefit from the development on the land. But the ownership of the land itself is retained by the community land trust, which is the way that we guarantee affordability, that we guarantee that the public benefit stays in the long term. So that's generally how the community land trust works. From there, the specifics can go different ways, and in a little bit further on in the presentation, we'll talk about how our community land trust wants to guarantee certain things like community participation, things like that. So we can go to the next slide. So CLTs are growing in popularity in the U.S., especially in the last few years of hard economic times. CLTs have been a way of setting aside a certain amount of land for public benefits that don't get built otherwise. Things like affordable housing, things like parks and open space. We know that there's a big need for these things here in Santana, but it's hard to get our hands on land. And so CLTs have been an effective strategy that's growing in popularity. Over 200 CLTs in the U.S., 20 just here in the state of California. We have some examples there as close as here in the city of Irvine, which is important to note. The city of Irvine is actually a part of the CLT. They're on the board. They play a key role in the administration of that CLT. And next slide. And so we have actually started with the collaboration, with the participation of city staff and council members to establish a CLT here in Santana. It's called Thrive Santana. And we're very proud of Thrive. And several community members are out here today in representation of this effort. But I'm going to pass the mic on to Cesar, to Nancy, who's going to talk a little bit about Thrive.
Can I get the next slide, please? So just to talk a little bit about Thrive Santana, Luis mentioned a little bit more about what a community land trust is, how it functions. So we all agreed that it would be a perfect opportunity, a perfect strategy here in Santana to help us address some of the challenges that we've been seeing for years and to help meet a lot of the needs that the community has been voicing through different community engagement and input processes, including through the 5-year strategic plan forum. So the mission of Thrive Santana is to build community wealth and multi-generational resident leadership by holding community land in trust and driving development that ensures permanent, affordable access to healthy neighborhoods. We do have a founding board, and you can see who the members are up there. One of the important pieces of a land trust is that the community is at the table and is part of the board that makes decisions about what land is acquired, how it's developed, and who it will be leased to. And so the founding board right now has 5 community residents and 5 organizational representatives. And actually, the president of Thrive, Veronica, was going to be part of one of the presenters today, but she had to go to attend family matters. And so, if I could get the next slide, please. Thank you. So to give you an update, we did meet with a few of the, or actually all of the council members on this committee to give you an update. I know you all had really great questions about where things were with the land trust, so we hope we can answer some of those questions today. The board was established last year. We officially became incorporated as a nonprofit in October of 2016. We've been meeting every 2 weeks since then to get the bylaws and everything up and running, get the mission up and running. We have 3 board committees that were developed, so that's the Land Acquisition and Developer Outreach Committee, the Funds Development Committee, and the Membership and Community Outreach Committee. Thrive will have a membership component that will invite community residents and other stakeholders to be a part of the membership. That gets to inform how we implement our mission. In terms of the Land Acquisition and Developer group, they actually held a convening in December and invited stakeholders from the developer community and investment community to help advise on steps moving forward. And we have built support in that sector of the community as well. You also asked about our budget and funding for Thrive. We are in the process of creating a business plan with the support of Concerned Capital, a technical assistance provider, and have come up with a general operating budget that includes costs for staff, liability insurance, due diligence expenses that are required when you are acquiring and managing land, and also maintenance costs. We have our first funding committed by the California Endowment. They have committed $50,000 for the first year of our operation. And the Fund Development Committee has set a goal to raise $150,000 for the first year. So we are fully up and running as a board. The programming of Thrive has 2 main areas. And so you'll see our business plan is getting drafted right now. But one of those areas, like we've talked about mostly, is land acquisition, management, and development. So that includes acquiring land, making sure that it's managed in a responsible way, and that it gets developed in a timely fashion, and also in a way that meets the needs and the priorities of the community. And the second program area is our Thriving Neighborhoods programs, which includes 3 main areas. One is about activating spaces. I think as you all in the special meeting, the last special meeting of the council committee, you did mention the need to look at how we can use vacant land to activate as possibly pocket parks or even community gardens. And so our hope is that we're able to work with the city to really activate parcels in that way through programming and also through other amenities that in especially parks for neighborhoods, for instance. One of the other programs would be to educate folks on tenant rights, but also work with residents on home ownership education and opportunities in the long run. And the third one is about economic development. So it's really how can we help support and cultivate local entrepreneurship, particularly for residents that maybe are really interested in starting their own business or cooperatively owned businesses, but lack the capital and the resources to get off the ground. So this is that program would be really how do we help cultivate local enterprise, especially for low-income residents. Next slide, please. So these are some of our milestones. As you can see, we made a lot of progress in a short amount of time. I already went through some of these, but we decided from the beginning that we were going to be more effective if this was a partnership with the city. And so we did invite the city to be on the board initially, and that invitation remains open. And so we continue to look, and we're glad to be here to look for ways.
And that was an interesting book. I recently saw the Irvine one does have some city representatives on the trust.
Yeah, the city of Irvine was actually very active in helping establish the community land trust there. And so, I'll leave it there. I think there are a lot of other milestones, but I'll leave it there and you can ask questions. Next slide. This is some of our funders, partners, and technical assistance providers, and we actually have letters of support that we wanted to present to you today, so I'm going to ask you to lead. She can help us distribute the letters so that you can see also the assertive support from different stakeholders from the community.
Expresando su interés y compromiso con
Next slide. Yeah. Now I'm going to pass it on to Cesar, who's actually the treasurer on the board, and he'll walk you through the next couple of slides.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to you a bit about the work that we've been doing. So part of what we see that a community land trust is so important is that we have the opportunity to have growth of assets in our community. So CLT can help us work around micro farms, for example, micro businesses, a way of building wealth in our community with residents, where residents can actually participate and be part of growing businesses in our city. You'll see that there's an opportunity with some of these sites or some of these lots to do business development. Mercadito has been talked about a lot, where our residents can look into opportunities to be entrepreneurs. There's also opportunities to look at parks, open space, community gardens, skate parks, and other recreational activities that may not be possible without partnerships in the community. So we have an opportunity to look at land as the main asset, and from that grow to build those partnerships that are required to bring forth the resources to develop the needs of the community. We also look at the land as an opportunity that should remain in the community as an investment. So it's not a one-time investment where just putting money into the sale of a property, for example. You're retaining an asset in the community that's going to be benefiting the generations to come. That's an important attribute of a land trust. You have that asset in perpetuity that's going to be benefiting the community. And then when it comes to affordable housing developments, you also have an opportunity to build a structure where it allows you to have control of the land, the asset. Again, many affordable housing developments, depending who you're partnering with, may be long-term investments that are good, maybe not. In 55 years, somebody could decide to build something different. If it's in a land trust, in 55 years, that land trust will determine that the affordability is still an important goal, and then affordability of affordable housing will continue. If the use of that property is something different that will benefit the community, that's a discussion that can be had in 55 years. We also see, again, an opportunity to stimulate growth. We talked a bit about the value of land. The more scarce resource in our community continues to be the value of real estate. And I think there's been discussion about selling properties and then trying to rebuy assets to then meet community needs. We think that's not the right strategy. We think that retaining the valuable asset that we can't afford to buy later on is the right way to go, to retain that parcels of land into the land trust that would allow us to then meet the community needs. We also see it as a collaboration with the city to help you get rid of burdens of administrating some of these sites that have not been developed for years. We've seen some properties vacant for 10, 15 years, and that's probably not the desire of the city, but there's an opportunity for partnership here to do that. We also see that if investment and development of these properties is done the right way, it could be a local investment that's a benefit to all. Next slide, please. So recently we have been discussing with the city about 97 plus vacant lots that we have seen in key locations throughout the city. Underutilized properties, some are vacant, some of them are also fenced around. Not a lot of use of those properties. So we see that there is an opportunity here for this partnership to look at these sites. We've looked at a few already and have some preliminary recommendations as to what the uses may be best. So you can go to the next slide, please. So how we would be doing this work is to continue to work with the city to identify land for the COT, work at private donations and fundraising for the organization to, again, be strong and have the capacity to build on these sites and collaborate with the city. One example that we've looked at is the Walnut and Daisy property, about 15,000 square feet, purchased with general funds from the city, and it's unrestricted. And we propose a similar use to what you see to the right-hand side, which is a micro farm where you can have a couple of things happening there. You have an opportunity to generate employment locally with youth and with adults, also for local enterprises where you have folks be part of a system where they grow crops and sell crops to businesses. This is an example of a farm in Oakland. It's called City Slicker Farms, and they've been able to develop the farm as a way to have also employment capacity and also produce vegetables and fruits that are needed in a community that is a food desert to some extent. So we see that opportunity here in Centennial also. So this is not the first time I think that community groups have partnered with the city. Thrive may be a new name to you, but I think a lot of the partners that are in partnership with Thrive, as was noted in the previous slide, and the folks that are here today, these are groups that have been working with the city to reach a lot of great things. We have some history going back to 2008 to the present. Back in 2008, we partnered with the city to work on city-owned properties along Santana Boulevard, Lacey, Garfield area. Now it's a development called Triada at the Station District, which is providing affordable housing to working families in Santana. Also providing a child care center on there. There's also a small business there that is part of that community. So there's a lot of important opportunities that I think we've been able to partner with. Building healthy communities, the Health, Medium, and Active Living Resolution, the Sunshine Ordinance, the Wellness Corridor, 5-year strategic plan. There's also a wellness resolution in 2015 that was passed. It talks about micro farms and mercadito being the key concept of an opportunity to build, again, employment and entrepreneurship here in the city. More recently, I think a lot of us have partnered with the city on complete streets and the improved active transportation plan. So there's an opportunity to continue this partnership to impact positive outcomes and wellness in our city and in our neighborhoods. There's also an opportunity to partner with our local residents as we have in the past, and set an example for other cities and show that we can use our resources in a way that impact positively and improve the health in our communities. We also have an opportunity to go back, as was mentioned in the wellness resolution, there was a very strategic direction given to look at opportunities to address mercaditos as a way to do micro-enterprising, and also the micro-parks is an opportunity to address quality of life issues, wellness, and food here in the city. So that concludes our presentation, and we would invite any questions if you have.
Thank you very much. I do have a question, but I think we should hear from the person. Yeah, in case anyone needs to leave, they can go ahead. They can go ahead and go. So I'll call for Carla Lopez Del Rio. Give it a timer.
I can do it here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carla Lopez Del Rio with NeighborWorks Orange County. We are a local nonprofit. We started off grassroots here in Santa Ana, and this year is our 40th anniversary of serving the community. We believe that families are better off when they can afford the place they can live in, and when they participate in how their cities they come together. So we have been partnering with Thrive. We've been partnering with the residents of Santana and many other of the projects that they've talked before. But in this case, we want to just represent NeighborWorks as one of the long-standing nonprofits here supporting Thrive. And one of the things that we've talked about is that if Thrive does not have the opportunity to have the land passed on to them because of the legal structure, NeighborWorks would be happy to hold that land for them until they have a legal structure in place. Any way that we can help this project get off the ground, we'll be happy to support. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for Thrive in regards to the land acquisition and the financing and all of that, but if you need to reach out to us, we'll be happy to answer any other questions or really confident
Great. And we're also going to limit to 2 minutes because we have quite a few speakers. Next speaker, Maritza Samante and Abby Cruz. Go ahead, thank you.
Hello, my name is Abby and this is Maritza, and we are here to tell you how, with the lack of space that was created for us growing up, we weren't really allowed to come out and play because our parents thought that it wasn't safe enough, or there was damaged property. Now there's like about 90 or more lots around here in Santana that the community could use for benefits for them, instead of like being sold to other people for a really high price. They could be used for affordable housing, parks, youth centers, and other places for them, so the community could become a better place and more open space for youth and other people, so they could have so they could interact more and become more of a community. With the CLC, there would be ownership in the lot of land, where we don't really see that really often right now. It's like very rare when you see a community owning the land. So with that, knowing that we would involve the community as partners, so because we are the community, we are able to involve in the community, and if they're not involved in the community, the city members, we would involve them in and ask them for their opinion of what they would like to see inside the zone. We ask of you to please help us and
Go ahead. Your last statement, go ahead.
we ask you to please help us and transfer the land of Juana and Daisy for us to become of the COC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marcos Rodriguez. And after him will be Jose Herrera. Go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Marcos Rodriguez, and I support the community land trust. I am the youth representative on the board of the Santana, and we've been working several months to see this organization established. This land trust is important to me because it gives the community a chance to take care of the land that they could own. Being born and raised in Santana, I really want my community to have a space to live a healthy and active life. Many of us live in apartments with little to no green space, and we need more space so they can help reduce obesity around the city and encourage families to spend more time outdoors. I know that the youth really don't have space to stay when they're the ones who try to be active. And with the community land trust, it would really help residents see a safe park come to life through the collaboration of community organizations, the city, and even groups like the Centennial Foundation and even OC Ranch. It's important for people to know that they own the land and that they could protect it for future generations as we invest in our youth lives, such as myself and my peers. Thank you.
After Jose is Marcela Rosas.
So, buenas tardes. I'm here representing Madison Park Neighborhood Association. And the Neighborhood Association has had a long history of very, I would say, beautiful collaboration with the city, particularly Parks and Rec. Many successes that we can discuss. The more recent one is the Pacific Electric Park. It's really exciting to see all the work that is being done in the lot currently, with the hope that having a new park in the neighborhood, at the end of the year. We are also part of the Santana Building Housing Communities, and we're here to really encourage you guys to invest in our youth and support the community land trust, because I think that's a good way for us to make this thing sustainable for generations to come. I think that this what is going on with the city and with also and Madison Park, it should be as an example for more deeper relationship with the community that will be long-lasting and self-sustainable for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Rosas? Here, we're going to go with Carla Juarez, last speaker on this item.
Hi again, thank you for having us here. I'll be very brief. I'm here as an advocate for affordable housing. Let me just share a little bit about my personal experience and that of family members and friends that I know. As far as I can remember, since I was little, we've always rented a space. I never had a real place to call my own. I remember when we first got here to the U.S. in 1989, when I was just 5 years old, we rented a space in the living room. And that was pretty scary, especially because I was a little girl, so I did not understand why. After that, we rented, there was a space in the garage with another family. And after that, we rented we kept on escalating up and up until we finally got to a room. Before we got to a room, I remember we rented a closet, just like Harry Potter. But it wasn't as cool as Harry Potter, because back then, nobody knew who Harry Potter was. And I was very embarrassed, and I never wanted to share that with anybody, because I was very embarrassed that I didn't have my own room, didn't have my own house. But I know a lot of families that are going through that. Thank God, knock on wood, I'm not in that situation anymore, because I can afford my own place, because I've learned how to budget and how to lower my expenses, and that includes not having kids. The whole reason why I don't have kids is because I can't afford it, and I don't want to make the same mistakes that my parents made. My single mom couldn't afford a place for us, and I don't want to make that mistake. That's why I don't have any kids, because I know I can't afford my own kids to have kids or her own room. And right now, giving you guys an update on my life, my mom, I'm sharing a house with my mom and my two brothers. So that, I thought that issue would have already been resolved, but has not been resolved. And that, unfortunately, a lot of other people from Santana are.
Thank you,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm gonna allow one more speaker ahead. I got one more request here, last person, Elizabeth Weber.
Since the topic on housing did come up, I am one of the voucher recipients, also military family, born and raised in Santana. I think something really does need to be done in the housing situation. I've seen a lot of things, a lot of articles being put out, putting Santana in a positive light with the number of vouchers being issued, but I'm not seeing anything in regards to how many attempts and how many times these people are having to be on the housing voucher. I myself had to do 3 different appeals. Orange County went ahead and reported me out. They went ahead and did an extension. Unfortunately, the only property that would even consider my family for a 2-bedroom at $1,650 was a location in Santana off of MacArthur and Bristol. To me, it was a heaven sent to be in that area. And unfortunately, Santana could not honor that extension and we lost it. Housing is a big issue. I don't think that we should be paying the same price for a 2-bedroom in Santa Ana that you are getting in Irvine. I think that's ridiculous, especially if you saw so much implications for property. I really hope you guys do something for our youth. I'm class of 2000. This issue is not going to go away by just more policing. It has to be after school programs. It has to be. We can't expect bringing in a gentrification is a serious thing in this city. I mean, it is. And we're not going to add value to our community if we don't add value to our city. And it's not going to be from outside value. It has to start with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open up comments or questions from my colleagues. Any comments or any questions from the board? Your questions?
Well, thank you, by the way, for your presentation, for your patience as well. I know a number of members of the community had to head out. I do apologize for the delayed start to the meeting, but you appreciate you staying back and bringing this presentation and information to us. I have had the opportunity to meet on a couple of occasions with a number of members of the community. There is a history also. I'm glad that you did outline the fact that there have been actions that the council, this council has taken over the last number of years. There's been deliberation, discussion, ideas, conversations, resolution. At the end of the day, the council, most recently in December, but even years prior to that, has listened to the community, has learned both about the need on a number of issues, from housing to green space, open space, to a more intentional efforts and policies around health. And so it has been a partnership between a number of both residents and the organizations represented to the point that the community, that the council has made commitment. Again, a number of occasions has taken action, taken votes in action to say, yes, we do want to be a partner with this community mattress. It's a new concept for Santa Ana, but not a new concept throughout the country. I know that there is this Thrive CLT has been in existence for roughly about a year, but as I look at the different partners and organizations, I didn't realize the history that the neighbor works at, the 40 years, Latino Access, I know has 20 or so years, 24 years. I know Kenny Commission has been around for some time. I think about 50 years since Cesar was in his 20s. Court has a long history as well. So there is a lot of institutional knowledge and a lot of history there. So from my vantage point, I see it as an opportunity for us as a city to look at something maybe new to us, but again, taking a practice that has been seen in other parts of both the state and the country, and an opportunity for innovation, an opportunity for us to, the simple answer when we have vacant lots is to put a for sale sign on them, if you will, market them, sell them, see something developed on there that would be, whether it be a business or some other type of benefit to another entity, and maybe we would reap a few $1,000s that we could invest somewhere else. but that's the easy answer. The more creative out of the box and the benefit in perpetuity that as I come to learn, through studying some about community land trust is that opportunity to be able to have the public hold on to that information. The public holding on to that land and really seeing it as an asset to the city, indefinitely. I don't have too many questions right now. A couple of things I jotted down, but more than anything, wanted to provide a little bit of that context. There was reference of the lot on Daisy and Walnut. And again, council did take, deliberated, considered, and did take action to give direction to city staff to go through the process of identifying the mechanism by which we could make that transfer, because we, as a city, again, have committed and to be able to partner and see the long-term benefit to the public by way of using that land through partnership with community land trust. So I'll leave it. I'll bring it back to council, my colleagues, to be able to address any of the questions. Well, last thing I did want to say, this is as the idea of public-private partnership has been one thing that has been seen in other cities, but more here in the city of Santana, not too long ago. I remember in the first couple of years of me joining the council, there was what now is several surplus parcels. At least one or two the city had, one or two parcels that a business in Santana had, and there's a nonprofit that had a vision for providing park space in a community center in an area that we didn't have one, that the city had not opened one, that we didn't have much space to be able to do that. But again, the outside the box and creative solution came together, and Northgate Gonzalez provided some land, and the city provided some land, and all access, and the community worked very diligently to be able to make that dream of reality. Now we have a park and community center and community garden. So that's just one tangible example of how it's been done in the past. And I see here another opportunity for us to be able to do something similar. And it's again something that I'm hopeful that my colleagues will be open to, and will be able to bring that to council, full council in the near future.
Thank you, Council Member Benavides. Councilor Solorio.
Yeah, I just at the moment have one question and then several comments, and I did meet with some of the groups and individuals involved, and I asked many questions and made many comments there. That was all very helpful. Have we had community land trusts here in the past? I know we spoke of Irvine, that one, because I forget if the Civic Center Barrio Housing Program is also officially a community land trust or not.
Civic Center Barrio is similar to a community land trust, not quite the same. I believe they were using either redevelopment or I believe either home-related funds.
It's a similar program, but it was not a formal community land trust. Okay, I thought I had heard some folks consider it also, but thank you for the clarification. I know there was a lot of discussion about affordable housing, and my position is, even if we do go forward with community land trusts, that the city should remain committed, the nonprofit community should remain committed, the private sector should remain committed to doing additional affordable housing. And we have some good developments in the works, about 1,500 units total. I'm excited about that, so we all need to keep rolling up our sleeves to do that. I know it's been referenced that only through a community land trust can we have community ownership over our land. And I would argue that all public lands are owned by the community, via commission, city staff, city council, but elected directly to the public. And so I do want also folks to feel and understand that all lands are owned by the public. I know Jose Reyes here from Madison Park, and I know he and I, working with the staff, for a year worked in projects in that community with the feeling that land that is there and is available, they should have a voice in what happens with the land, whether public or private property. And if it's public and if there's a good use for it, that we ought to empower the community in shaping it, designing it, helping maintain it, and helping us watch over that as good stewards. So I do recognize and believe that public lands are owned by the community as well. I do think that there's a little bit of a difference with community land trust, that there's a different governance structure over the development and operation of that land. So that's a different form of community ownership. I don't see that as the only way of community ownership. Moving forward, as the city continues to consider programs like this, I know at the past meeting that we had here, and I know from the dais my colleagues and I have, some of us at least have said, we have all this vacant land out there. Sometimes it looks vacant even though it's owned by private interests, and we ought to find out what are all the available lands that the city can either sell or make available to nonprofits or public-private partnerships, and that we put those out for bid. Either if private entities want to buy those parcels, if nonprofits or community land trusts want to make offers, either in terms of a public use or a public-private partnership or a direct purchase, and in particular too, there may be some of those sites that are good uses for parks. Good uses for skate park, good uses for affordable housing. We've talked about, in addition to our current food truck policy, to maybe create islands where we can have food trucks there with with music and seating and parking, and that be a community asset. So as we put together that long list of potential properties, I just want all those lands to be put to good use. And I know when I met with the community, I said, look, at the end of the day, when there's an individual in Santana that's of low means, and if they're looking for affordable housing, they don't really care who owns it. What they do care about is it affordable, is it accessible, and are there good amenities? And so with land that we have available, whether it be public, private, or nonprofit, I just want to make sure that they're put to the best use of our community. Also, as it relates to particular this specific Thrive Community Land Trust, I do like the progress that's being made quarter after quarter with the development of its bylaws, getting a bank account, etc. That for me, whether it be this nonprofit, because really it's also going to be a nonprofit, it is important to me that there be a good financial foundation, that there be a resources and program for planning and development of properties, and a plan for operations. Very, very important. Because the last thing I want to see is that public lands, whether it be by a city or a nonprofit or community land trust, that is provided but then that remain vacant and dormant for years, or that it get partially developed and then not maintained or open on an annual basis. Again, I know I was here on the city council previously when we helped develop Latino Health Access back when I was on the Venice Park, so I'm very proud we developed that park, but I'm a little bit saddened when I often drive by and oftentimes it's closed, and I do know that they have certain hours approximately from about 1 to 7 every day, and I think weekends it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or so. I'd like to see, to be open, all day long. Well, not all day long, but consistent with park hours, which are, to sunset at the best, and that it be usable by the community. And then, whether it be again a community land trust or a regular nonprofit, if we are going to enter into a public-private partnership, we also need to take into account that at some point the property or the facility isn't being maintained anymore or changed in use, that there be a process for how it reverts back to the city or how it gets put out to bid by other nonprofits, but some process there. And I think those are my general comments, and I do like the progress being made, and like to see future consideration of how we use all those available items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salorio. Just one quick question to the board here regarding the micro farms. Do we have soil test being done, or you have that in mind? I mean, we're going to produce something, put it out to the public, they're going to consume it, talking liability, right?
So we have started doing preliminary screening of environmental, you need to do environmental screening when you acquire a property. And so we have started looking at the companies that would do, the phase 1 environmental report, and then whatever that study produces would tell us if we need to do, another phase 2 environmental report. Usually, when we acquire a property, we would figure that out between the city and us as the group that's going to acquire the property. But it would be great to be able to talk about those things with the city as well.
Great, thank you very much. I don't have any further questions. I don't have any more comments, so we're going to move on to the next item. Thank you. Next item, number 3. I want to thank the board for coming up. Thank you. Catalina, 2017 update.
One question, Mr. Chairman, that you have is, we received an update, and I know that we have, previously discussed with staff as to next steps. And I would like to affirm the direction that we've been going into work that staff has been doing, has been taking, and I appreciate some of the feedback and input and guidelines that some of my colleagues made with regard to ensuring that there would be mechanisms by which the city would be able to monitor, we would potentially have property that would be deeded, that the mechanism by which would potentially come back if it were to sit, without the use, continue to monitor the progress of the incorporation and all. So I'd like to just to make a motion that we have staff continue to work with Thrive CLT and continue to monitor their progress and look at the steps to do a partnership, look at parcels in general, but specifically the Daisy and Walnut property that has already been discussed and identified for a potential joint project there and transfer that location. So that's my motion. I'd like to have my colleagues entertain.
Thank you.
I think support for that is maybe we had a second part to it, and that is that staff look at that property and all the other properties that may be good opportunities for public use, and also report back on a timeline for when we might be able to consider both those projects are related, but also separate. That we consider the Walnut site potential opportunity, what a partnership like that might look like, as well as timeline considerations for putting out to bid a long 90+ list of properties, and as part of that, identifying what might be sites for public use, whether it be by city, nonprofit, or public-private arrangements.
So we asking the motion on the table.
Yes, this is a friendly amendment to add a second to this. And really both these elements also require staff coming back when they feel it's appropriate to make recommendations or updates.
So that's the motion on the table. Is that okay? We're going to add on?
Yes.
So
that's a second. Well, I think Councilmember Benavidez made the motion. I make the second with the friendly amendment.
Okay, so we're all in agreement? For the record. Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 3, Catalina 2017 update. Do we have staff on this?
I'm actually the one to speak on it.
Yes, Juan Lara will be the staff presenting Catalina Campo 2017. Give them a little bit of time to adjust him to present someone else to present.
Okay, all right, we have a public comment on it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we have one. Elizabeth? Gavin?
Oh, I can do my own. Yeah, you could do it.
We have one comment, so Elizabeth wants to. Thank you.
Yeah, so my only comment, this is the first time looking at it right now, right before the meeting. And so, just to put Santa Ana Unified School District on a 2014 grant, if 100% of the Santa Ana Unified School District students qualified for the Pre-Bridge Lunch Program, which is an indicator of the poverty level, how are we expecting these families to pay $120 per camper? Will there be a sliding pay scale? And scholarships or grants being provided by the city of Santa Ana or Santa Ana Unified? So just wondering.
That'll be part of the presentation.
Oh, okay.
Juan Lara will be presenting on that, and he will respond to that.
All right, thank you very much for your comment. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Chairperson and council members. We have a brief presentation now on the Catalina Camp Out. This is an annual camping tradition that the city offers to youth ages 10 to 14. The camping trip takes place every summer, and obviously it's over at Catalina Island. This year's camp is scheduled for Thursday, July 27th through Tuesday, August 1st. As you see through the flyer that's been presented to you, it does have a cost of $120 per camper fee, which obviously it does not truly cover the cost of every individual camper, but even then, anybody who's interested in attending the camp and is not able to afford it can solicit a scholarship that would cover the cost of the camp for the campers. So this is a great opportunity for our youth. It tends to be one of the first experiences, camping experiences that our youth have, and they remember it for years and to come. It is a wonderful opportunity for our youth. Last year we were able to take 70 children to the Catalina Camp Out. As you'll be able to see from a list that was shared with you, the camp is staff run, but we rely heavily on volunteer support for this program. Doing so allows us to again keep it affordable for youth, but given the current budget situation for the city, we are recommending a reduction in participants from the 70 that went last year to 50 participants this year. Okay, as well as you can see from the list of staff, we have volunteers that are interested in continuing to support this program. One of those volunteers being former council member Roman Reyna. He's expressed his interest in participating as a volunteer this year again. Just to note, with the use of volunteers for this camp, it allows us to save $25,000 on the expense. Instead of taking staff, we take volunteers, and it saves us quite a bit of money. So with that, again, we're looking forward to starting to promote the camp out and open registration for anybody that is interested in going to camp at Catalina this year. And the additional information is on the flyer. And at this point, if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. And after that, I'll translate.
Great, thank you very much. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. What's at 70 people or 70 youth? What's the total? What would have been the total cost to the city?
The total cost for the city at 70, I don't have the exact number. We can provide it at a later time.
Do we have like a range or?
It's close to about $70,000.
Okay. I would say that I, at this point, would prefer that we don't see a reduction in the number of youth, that we still strive for 70 as a target, and perhaps more, but that we continue to work on a very difficult budget, that we have a minimum of 50, but we can see if we can't afford the 70 or potentially more.
I believe this is the 17-18 budget, and so I think it would probably be in the adoption of the budget, because the monies would have to be added in order to be able to, because this is the dates again is in July. So it's in the next fiscal year. Yeah, this current budget already paid for last year, and so we would need to incorporate the full expense of the 70
Right.
in the budget to be adopted by City Council.
So I mean, so if it's roughly, going down from 70 to 50,000, it's a net difference of about $20,000 to term out there, that kind of stays on levels. Maybe it's budget desk, it is a consideration. I appreciate staff being fiscally conservative, but in the big picture, the value of staying at 70 or perhaps more may be, something we may want to protect as we continue to.
We'll include it in the proposed budget.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Solorio. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would concur with Councilman Solorio, and thank you, staff, for your presentation. And I've heard from a number of students, both recent students from the community who have attended, and some who attended 15 and 20 years ago, who remember their
fan club, yeah.
Right. And who have, it was their experience, and one of the days they'll talk about decades later, it was instrumental in just their growing up and their development. And there's no better investment than to make than in our young people and character development. Given that, I would agree with Councilman Solorio, the idea of trying to keep that minimum maintained, not even grow, and understand, again, we're cognizant of the fact that we're in budget crunch as well. But maybe if Councilman Solorio and Villegas and myself sign up as camp volunteers, we can reduce the cost and help out with it.
A little more.
Sure. Thank you very much. So we'll try to keep it at 70, the proposed, correct?
Yeah, we'll include it in the budget so that we would have sufficient funds to pay for it, yes, to be adopted.
Anything else from staff?
Okay.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 4, the Daniel Soccer Complex. Is there a staff on this update?
That'll also be me presenting on it.
Very good.
Okay, so we have actually a couple of proposals that I'll cover for you tonight. The first one pertains to a proposal for a 7-on-7 soccer program. This proposal was submitted by Interamericana Adult Soccer Association President and owner, Mr. Edgar Vasquez. This item pertains to the field number 2 at the Dan Young Soccer Complex, and it particularly addresses the idea or suggestion to create 4 7-on-7 fields to play 4 games simultaneously. Yes, sir.
Great. And excuse me, I wanted to, we have some speakers on this. I know that they're cleared out, so if we can get to the speakers real quick, that would continue with
sure.
That would be great. First we have Mr. Chris Schmidt, and then after them, Marcela Rosas. Is she here? No, she left? Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
Good evening, City Council
Thank you,
members
sir.
and City staff. My name is Chris Schmidt. I am the Vice President of the Windsor Village neighborhood, which is directly across from Centennial Park. I know we're talking about soccer here, but I'm here to talk about parking. There's currently not enough parking in Centennial Park, and when these sports leagues are playing, there's not enough area. I know several parents whose children play on the youth field for AYSO, and they said there's never enough parking. What I see here is the current configuration of Field 2 is 11 by 11 players. That's 22. This new configuration will take it to 56 players on the field. You're basically tripling the number of players and tripling the number of cars. So I have concerns about that. There's not enough parking space for people to actually use the park and enjoy it. Secondly, I believe Godinez High School uses Field 2 to practice football from time to time. And I don't know if this new configuration would be requiring painting new lines, but Field 2, the synthetic turf was just replaced at a cost of $600,000 to our city. So I don't know why we're presenting this now and not a year ago. So those are my comments. There's not enough parking at Centennial Park.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comment. Elizabeth Weber left. And we're going to continue. Is there Sebastian Vasquez here? Forward, sir.
Well, I have a really good answer for the question of this gentleman. Especially on weekends. There's a few soccer fields going on, let's say Godinez High School, Centennial 5 and 6, and also Centennial Complex 1, 2, and 3. So I'm talking about weeknights. so from 7 and 9. At that specific time, we have like a more space available in order to park there. So we are not gonna be causing a problem. So it's not gonna be creating a chaos using the parking space. So in other words, we try to provide a positive activity for our community, especially weeknights, where kids and adults, they don't have nothing positive to do. And as you know, as a lack of the space, we try to be creative, maximize the use of the field, which is in this case is Centennial field number 2. The second answer for his question about the painting. So we don't have to chop the field, we don't have to paint it, we don't have to do lines. We're going to be using like a certain tape, and it doesn't damage or affect the existing synthetic field. It's going to be used during a game, and right after that we're going to take it out without causing any damage to the field. And as I said, I have been doing my study, and unfortunately, as you know, there's a lack of field here in Santana. In the past, we used to use like a small field, and unfortunately, there's not too many places to play. So that's the reason why we try to be creative and maximize the use of the field.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Carla Juarez.
Thank you. I thank you for your patience. Mrs. Rojas had to leave because she has a family to feed. Her concern, which I also think is a concern that concerns me, and I have siblings, is the fact that some of these fields you have to be part of a team, and then you have to also pay a fee in order to be part of a team, in order to be able to play in the field. So I think that if we do have parks that are more available for just basic residents that could use to go play soccer versus having to pay to go play soccer. And that was her main concern, the fact that she has 3 kids and she would have to pay triple as much as anybody else. But thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you very much for your comment. Go ahead, sir, with your presentation.
So again, this proposal for 7-on-7 specific to Field 2 at the Gagnon Soccer Complex. Next slide, please. So here, what you have on the visual is the current use for field number 2 at Centennial. And again, it's designed for the traditional soccer game of 11 versus 11, whereas the proposed use, as you see on the graphic below, is for the establishment of, again, those 4 7-on-7 fields. So rather than running on the traditional, end-to-end zone, then we would go diagonally on the 4 adjacent fields. Okay, go ahead. The next proposal that we also received was for the Centennial Park field realignments for fields 5 and 6. The proposal, again, was submitted by Interamericana Soccer Association President, Mr. Edgar Vasquez, and this pertains to fields 5 and 6 at Centennial Park. The proposal here is to create a 3rd field in that same area. Next slide, please. So again, here you have the current use of those fields 5 and 6, which in essence is also the fields that are designated for softball at Centennial Park. The proposed use does then realign and reconfigure the fields to then be able to accommodate under the proposal a 3rd field. Now, next slide, please. The status of both proposals are that obviously, they've been received and are currently under review for structural impact and safety regulations by city staff. Okay, we are checking on the proposals alignment with the Southern California Municipal Athletic Federation's governing guidelines for fields, as well as then sporting events in our facilities. We are also consulting with Santana Unified School District, in particular with Godinez High School, who uses these fields for their softball games, as well as for their regular PE activities. There are also other users of those fields that are being consulted on for any possible impact on their use for those fields. And lastly, of course, we're consulting with other cities that currently conduct 7-on-7 programs. What we're looking to do is once this review is completed, to come before you again and present you with our official recommendations for how to proceed and to respond to both of these proposals. And that concludes our presentation. Any questions?
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Sure, a couple of questions. So would either of these proposals, I think maybe the second one in particular, do they require any type of improvements or changes, modifications made to the physical field? And if so, who would be covering the cost of that, of those modifications or updates? And what a few questions, as follow to that one, what the relationship would be between the city and the soccer association, and if it's a for-profit business that's or is it a non-profit community serving organization? Give me a little bit of background. Okay, let's look at background.
To answer your second question, sir, the proposal was received by a for-profit soccer organization, and it's just a proposal, as we understand it, to maximize the use of the fields and create additional play areas, for their participants, and others obviously who use those fields. At this point, the responsibility for any work, to be done to accommodate these proposals would fall on the city, and there will obviously be, not only costs associated with any realignment and reconfiguration and any improvements that will need to be done, but there'll be other aspects that will need to be considered if we were to move forward with the implementation of this proposal.
See if any of my colleagues have any question first.
Councilmember Solorio?
Yes, first I do want to thank the staff and the league for bringing this proposal forward. Really just more comments for the public and for staff. Number one, if we do allow these options to play 707, I do want them to be for use by any leagues per the reservation process, so for-profit, non-profit, city, they should all have the opportunity to follow this type of program. My understanding, I think, is that at least with the existing fields, there wouldn't be any permanent painting or restructuring. I know on 5 and 6 there, potentially there might be some grading, and if there are any hard costs, I know the adult leagues have been paying into a surcharge program for several years, and so maybe that could cover all or some of it, preferably all. And I know, at least for the synthetic turf, there shouldn't really be any sizable costs. And then to address the staff costs as well as the issue of cost to the public that may want to use this, I mean, I would think it'd be reasonable to charge a modest amount more per hour, but we do really charge per hour, not necessarily per soccer player, but maybe a small, modest increase, given that there's going to be a little bit more wear and tear. And then for those that, whether it be a city league or a nonprofit league or a for-profit league, I think if you have more players out there, it will actually incrementally decrease the amount that an individual player or team has to pay on it, because they're sharing the cost of that time with more people. So I think that's a plus. And then on the subject of parking, sometimes we really kind of when you go to the gym, it's this initial parking inconvenience. People don't want to walk far when they park anywhere, even if it's going to the gym. And I think at Centennial, I'm in the area pretty often because my children have went to Medina's high school, and I always find parking. I mean, certain parts of the day there's more or less, sometimes maybe not as close as you'd like it to. I know also we have the parking garage exit units, but I don't know if that's always open or they're by hours. So can you answer the question on the availability of the parking structure? And then overall, is your assessment that there are times where every parking spot throughout Centennial is used? If you could comment on this.
Sure. To answer your question about the parking structure, that is a school district facility, and it is only opened when it's reserved through the school district. So it's not open for public use at any given point, unless again it's
So it closes at a
connected.
certain time, or?
Yes.
When there's a need, the city ends up
So we could reserve it.
coordinating and
Area,
opening
okay.
it when there's going to be big events and stuff, because it's a joint use facility.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's part one. How about parking just overall?
Overall, depending on the time of day, but we do get constant feedback from the users in general. The parking is a challenge, not only because of the amount of use that the fields get there, but obviously we have the school and we have Santana College, that at various times throughout the day occupy the various parking lots. Not only do we have a parking issue, as we understand, on the park, but we understand that at given points we've received concerns from the residents in the adjacent neighborhood as to the impact that activities at the park have within their neighborhoods. So, we get more feedback as to concerns with parking than, right.
So that might speak to it. I know we have later on our agenda discussion on agenda items for our joint use meeting with the school district, and maybe we ought to think of if there are certain days or portions of the day where we're overloaded on parking, and we ought to try to figure out how to use the parking structure, even if it means additional costs for the leagues or schools that use those facilities. Okay, so just my thoughts. But I like your idea of doing additional due diligence and then bringing it back with some recommendations.
Thank you, Councilor. So, I got a quick question or some comments here. Field number 2, got that slide up. See how you have 4 fields on there?
Yes.
I played in a league, 7-on-7 soccer. Having 4, we usually have 2 playing fields on one large football field.
One very large.
Yeah. So in here you would get pretty crowded because the ball, soccer, as I'm sure you know well, that seeing the games and the ball goes out of bounds and it's going to get.
Yes, the mind of its own.
What do you say about that? What do we have? Do you reduce it to 3? Because I play everywhere. And I played over here at the Great Park too. And they have this setup. It's awesome, but with that artificial turf. Thing is that you can get a little crowded.
Right. Well, again, part of our research and consulting with other cities who run similar programs would be what is the guidelines that they utilize for how many fields how many 7-on-7 fields a regular size field can accommodate. Again, when these fields were first designed, it was designed with just the regular traditional soccer or football type of games to happen there. So not only are we consulting with other cities who already have this experience, but also we want to make sure that any safety concerns are addressed, in regards to the implementation of these proposals. And we want to make sure that we do adhere to those governing guidelines that deal with the use of the field and what is safe in terms of use.
If you're talking 56 people, if it's 7-on-7, 56 people on the field at one time.
There was
plus you have
substitutes,
and you got people, the family, the kids, and all that stuff. So I can see where parking would be an issue. Maybe you could reduce it down to 3. It's something to think about.
That is a possibility, and again, once we have a complete, detailed review, then we'll be able to return to you with a recommendation.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Benavides.
Thank you, John. A couple of just last comments. Just to also touch on and reinforce some of the comments my colleagues have made with regard to parking. There's a parking structure there, and so we should be able to work something out, I would imagine, with the school district. Definitely something that I think would make sense for us to bring before the joint use joint use committee or joint district and city committee, but then also just put on staff's radar. That's something we would like to see explored. And the other is to ensure that we're taking steps to have these facilities, any park facility, to the point earlier made, that all of these park space or any space that is city-owned is public-owned, it's a public property. So just we want to make sure that we are also making these fields available, to the point of the speaker earlier, to figure out a way to make it available to the public for use as well, who may not be in a soccer league, who may not have the funds or just not be participants in some type of formal sporting association, but that would also want to be able to make use of the fields at some point as well. So we should make sure to have some type of balance, have some open play time as well, especially if we're going to be making them available or making some modifications and investing dollars into making some of these improvements, modifications. It should be something that the public should be able to benefit from as well. So those are my comments, and look forward to seeing updates in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we don't see any other comments here. We close out the public. We will continue with item number 5. Discuss the city joint use policy for the Santa Unified. What's that on this?
There's a draft of an agenda, I think?
Yes, they have it in front of them. Ron, are you going to speak on it?
I can. What you have before you is a draft joint policy meeting agenda that was provided by the school district, and some of the items also provided by the city. As we go down the agenda, one of the items that we really need to look at is the bylaws. This committee never actually initiated bylaws, so we are going to go through and do that. Staff has drafted a draft bylaws to start, so we can add or delete from that as we meet next month. The district did add the Roosevelt Walker update, Garfield Neighborhood Park, which we assume is the 6th and Lacey Park site. I've got calls in to verify that. Also a discussion on the water tower and parking at Remington School. They indicated that last year they used their Gudinas, I believe, for high school graduation, to bring it back up if it could be used as the stadium can be reused for graduation. On the
They want to use Gudinas again?
No, they want to use the stadium.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. And number 7, there's 3 items there. I'm not exactly sure what they're meaning to discuss on those items, but I have a call into them just to verify what their intentions are. And on communication, same thing. They want to discuss how on emergency operations, how the school district communicates with the city and vice versa. Expanding student library cards, that's both the school district and the city wants to bring up for discussion. Student internship, same thing, it's the city and the school district want to provide us for discussion. And the partnership, the district wants to provide or discuss possible joint use agreements, collaboration between the community and nonprofits, the MOU covering the pro bono events and the Santana Community Enrichment Program.
I think items 10 and 11 we also discussed at this last committee. So maybe you could put saying Unified School District / city.
Okay.
And I'd say the way I had discussed it as well, in the previous conversation, talked with Councilmember Benavides about it. I see student internships also being under item 11.1 because there were prior commitments made, and we'll have to try to honor some of these nonprofit efforts, but also maybe consider student internship element as well.
On item number 12, the Kia billboard signage, I'm not sure what the reason why this is on the agenda. My assumption is the use of that billboard for school. advertising. Same thing with item number 13, the Neil Chander. At one point, they brought up additional lighting, and just recently, they brought up the possibility of installing some type of a screen on the First Street side of the tennis courts and provide some kind of advertising of school programs. So that's actually going to the planning department for review. They've asked that the permit be pulled so they can fully review the intentions.
Is that a school site or a city site?
That's currently a city site, but they have a joint use agreement to use it for tennis use. On item number 14, your policy indicates 2 meetings a year, and which is in April and in October. The school district, and we've been meeting quarterly in the past, so they brought up for discussion the frequency of meetings. I'm not sure if they want to increase it, decrease it, but I'm sure that they would like to have more communication with the council members. And that's it.
Right, thank you. Yeah, any comments? And I'd like to add.
Nothing else I would like to add. A couple of the items that I had in mind are already referenced here in the agenda. The only thing is, it's a full agenda.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a 24-hour meeting or how it's planned or a week-long meeting, but yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how much of this we're able to get to. It might make sense to prioritize and make sure that we have at the top of the agenda those items that we want both city and district want to make sure to cover. I just don't know how much we'll be able to cover within even 2 hours to 3 hours even.
Ron, it's our turn to host.
Yes.
So so most of these items that were added was a recent ad by the school district, so that's why you see so many. I think that Ron's going to be in the process of getting clarification on some of these issues that we're not really sure what they mean with the school district, and then what we'll do is then we'll have a new draft so that we can kind of think about what you were just saying with regards to prioritizing and trying to get agreement with the school district on prioritization.
And they're all valid and important items that make sense to address and discuss. I just don't know that we'll be able to get to all of them within a reasonable time of the meeting. So there's a lot of recommendation to prioritize and make sure to hit on those things that folks
If I could just mention item number 5, the water tower, that one is a real priority. So I would recommend maybe moving it up in the discussion. It ties to an agreement that we have that expired this month, so we're in the process of working with the school district and potentially figuring out a solution.
Today also there was, I'll forward it to you, Robert, but there was a correspondence sent by the school district regarding the water resource that you all will probably get a copy of it tomorrow. But there was something that just on the regard the water tower that I think Robert and Public Works will have to address, the water department in particular.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, my comment would be similar to Councilmember Benavides, is that these are a lot of items. I think some of them maybe just could be written updates, whereas others really are updates and discussion. So if the school district and the city could kind of suggest which ones may be just updates that they want us to know about. Not that we couldn't pull them and discuss them, but that maybe some are more updates, whereas others really do require discussion. As for me, now the combined item 11, which includes 10, is a priority. And the city-wide Wi-Fi is a priority. And maybe we pull out 7.3 city-wide Wi-Fi as a separate standalone item and put that it's Centennial Unified School District /city. Because I also don't want, for optics purposes, to look like it's the school district that has interest in that, and we don't. They were just tagging along. But I think that's something that the city's been doing a lot of work on.
Great. Very good. So we we have direction on that. Thank you very much. Go to item number 5. I'm sorry, we've got 6. We have one speaker, Carla Juarez.
Oh, that was it, I'm sorry. Yes, that was in regards to having this in Spanish, so Spanish speaking folks can follow you guys when you're just rely on verbally. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, please try to the committee agenda discussion. Any of my colleagues?
I don't have any, this time about community stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see upcoming ones, not necessarily the immediate next one, but just for the future. You know, we hear a lot from the soccer community, but I want a report on site parking, other demands by other sports, and then a discussion regarding other sports or joint use opportunities at Cadenas High School. I know, for example, I think on there have an interest in a swimming pool and I think a tennis court. That's them. I don't know if we kind of share any similar requests or ideas for that.
Very well, thank you very much. Next. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I do want to pull back my no agenda item comment to actually add a couple that I just remembered that I do would like to have some discussion on. One is the Youth and Family Master Plan that was put together a few years back. We're interested in bringing that back up, get reports and discussion around that, how we can, we're supporting or can support further our youth in our city. And the second item would be an update report on the current recreation programs within our city park and rec division, rec programs that are different rec centers, and just an overview of how we're implementing the program, and anything that might be to Mr. Villegas' question when the next meeting is, because I was going to ask anything that might relate particularly to any summer specific, like just general rec programs, but then also anything that might be summer specific. I'm not sure when our next meeting is, assuming it's prior to summer. But
so do we have a date, a possible date, or we're going to work?
Where's the next council committee?
July 24th.
Okay, the page. 4th of July, very good, okay. Very good, okay. I want to thank the members of the public that came out, all the staff for the great work that you are doing, and we will adjourn this meeting.
Thanks for staying late and staff on your work. We'll do dinner before.
Good night.